the Public Works, Finance, and Safety Committee meeting of Monday, February 3rd, 2020. First item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. A motion by Manti and a second by Holleen, I think. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item C is public input. If anyone is here that would like to come forward and speak, now's your chance. See no one, we'll move on. Item D is approval of the agenda. A motion by Vilhauer and a second by Lallam. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. The regular agenda is section E. Item 1 is council consideration of change order number 3 with J&J Earthworks Inc. for the 2018 street improvements project, project number 1801-D, 26th Street Southeast, for an increase of $16,359.39, bringing the final contract amount to $191,089.39. Do I have a motion? Motion by Y and a second by Bueller. And I will ask Public Works Director Heath Von Eye to tell us about this.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of Council, this item is a little bit of a delayed closeout of this project. It was initiated back in 2018. This is an assessment project, meaning that the cost for this construction of this roadway, this extension of 26th Street Southeast, is being assessed back to the adjacent property owners. This project, as it progressed through 2018, it was decided to let it go through a freeze-thaw cycle. It included the installation of a new water main, storm sewer, new street, curb and gutter, all the common amenities that a public roadway in the city limits would have. After the extension of that work into 2019, further delays caused it to be extended into late 2019 before it was finally completed. Those delays were associated with weather delays. Asphalt plant here locally opened late last construction season and pushed the paving of the roadway off. There were also further delays for the final seeding and vegetation to be established subsequent to that. This contract amount, this change order is to the tune of just over $16,000, and it includes pricing, quantity overruns on paving and base course. We do have all the weight tickets for the asphalt. That's been confirmed and reviewed. So we did in fact receive the tonnage shown on the final change order, and owe the contractor in that amount shown on the change order. The asphalt alone was about $7,100 overrun, and the base course was about $1,700 overrun. There was also a sanitary sewer manhole price adjustment to the tune of about, exactly $2,000, an increase. That was found during the bid review process when the bids came in. I confirmed that with staff today that the $2,250 sanitary sewer manhole, it was an error on the bid that was submitted. The original bid showed $250, and again, that was caught during the bid review process when all the bids came in, and it was agreed upon by staff at that time to go ahead and incorporate that $2,000 change in the final change order. That change did not and would not have affected who the low bidder was at the time the bids were open, but I thought I'd point that out as well here this evening. Assistant City Engineer Paulson's in the meeting here with us tonight, and he or I would be glad to help answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you. Do we have any questions, Council? No questions? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item number 2 is council consideration of pay estimate number 5, final, for the Hangar Taxi Lane Expansion Project, AIP number 3-46-0058-032-2017, with J&J Earthworks for $29,050, bringing the final contract amount to $661,166.53. I have a motion by Holleen and a second by Hoyer. You have a hoarse voice. And Heath, would you tell us about that one, please, too?
Absolutely, Mayor. This is a final pay estimate. Just to note, not a change order, but a final pay estimate. The change order for this contract associated with these numbers was executed back in October of 2019, and that brought the adjusted contract quantities down to the new contract price of $661,166. There has since been a delay to execute this final pay estimate, mainly due to waiting for the subcontractors to submit their lien waivers, so that it was shown that the general contractor had them all squared away as far as the subcontractor work goes. So all that's been taken care of. Our consultant engineer, Helms and Associates, has produced this final pay estimate. This would close this project out. It is an AIP funded project, so it's a 95, 5, and 5% split, with the city's share being 5%. Our total cost on this then equates to just over $33,000 for this taxi lane expansion project that initiated back in, is it 2017, I believe, 2018? Airport Manager Todd Cea is here with us tonight, and here I'd be glad to help answer any questions you might have. I would also note this is an overall reduction in the contract cost. The original bid amount was $727,502.50, and the change order that was executed last October brought the final contract amount down to $661,166.53.
Great, thank you. Any questions, Council? Yes, Councilman Vilhauer.
He just, I mean, overall, what were the deductions of 66,000? I mean, quantities, any idea? I can just go real quick overview on that.
Yeah, absolutely. They were mainly carried out through two different change orders. Change orders number 1 and 2 in 2019. Change order number 2 was for about $48,000 reduction. A lot of that had to do with bituminous base surface course tonnage. There was a reduced quantity of just about 400 tons that was a cost savings to the project. You know, as to why that quantity reduction, I'd have to maybe defer to staff on that, but that was the main one. And then change order number 1 was to the tune of about $18,000 reduction. And again, a big component of that was a reduction in bituminous base surface course of 230 tons being taken out of the contract.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item number 3 is council consideration of a professional services agreement for miscellaneous engineering services for annual airport duties with Helms and Associates in the not-to-exceed amount of $15,050. A motion by Helene. Second by Manti. And Heath, want to tell us about this, please?
You bet. Thank you, Mayor. This is an annual miscellaneous engineering services contract with Helms and Associates. As most of the council is familiar, we've been using this consultant on our airport services for quite some time, quite a number of years. Todd Cea, Airport Manager, brought this contract forward for council's action tonight. The budget this year allows for up to $15,050. Not sure how we snuck that extra $50 in there, but we did. And anyway, that's the amount that this will be executed for, in a not-to-exceed amount. And then subsequent discussions tonight, later on in the Public Works Committee here, we will be talking about one of those professional services that we hope to use some of these monies towards, and Helms' services.
All right, thank you. Any questions, council?
And this does come before us with the airport board recommending approval, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Nothing else? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 4 is recommendation to the City Council from the Parks and Recreation Board for authorization to enter into a professional services contract with TSP Architects for $64,000 to be paid in fiscal year 2020 for the design of the Animal Care Building, and requesting a supplemental transfer from the Capital Improvement Fund. And before I get a motion, I just want to say there has been an offering of a tremendous gift to the city of Watertown to enable our community to build this animal care facility. This has been something we've struggled with, but the gift is in the amount of $1 million, and it's a game changer. It's a game changer. $1 million gift to build the animal care facility. So, with a happy note, I will look for a motion.
I would love to make the motion, Mayor.
I have a motion
Second.
by Vilhauer and a second by Lallam, and that's to get started this year. So, I'll have the Parks and Rec.
I don't know how I follow that up, Mayor. No, and thank you, and Dan's up here, but what I want to do, you know, with that, it really changed the outlook. We found this out late Friday, and I didn't have time to prepare what's on the agenda for you tonight, but I do feel we need to focus what those agenda items are currently. So if you go ahead and, we followed the protocol. We went through the Zoo Society initially, because one of the things we were tasked with is where are we going with the AZA accreditation? How do we make it work? So the AZA, who does report to the Park and Rec Board as a liaison committee, within the documents, if you want to scroll down a little bit, just so you can see item under new business A, somewhere in there. Okay, there it is. And all that is just to show the zoo committee, who is completely committed to the zoo. They met, gave us a recommendation to the park board. Their recommendation is twofold. Item B will also talk about one thing on the agenda. We've got two things that we really are focusing on the accreditation. One is obviously the quarantine animal care building, and the other one is the staffing levels at the zoo. We're fortunate to get one new staff member in fiscal year 2020 funded by the council, and thank you very much. That's a 2-year commitment by the LE, or the Zoo Society, on top of funds within the department. Although the recommendation from AZA was for 2, we knew financially we could not achieve that without some outside help. So the Watertown Community Foundation did step up with $90,000 over the course of 2 years. That's $45,000 per year to fund that second position. The balance of that really funds the salary of that position, but obviously we do have the tax portion, the benefit portion. And LAZS stepped up again with an additional $8,000 for that position. And Dan and I met, and we found the other $8,000 for $16,000 total that we could take within our operational budget. So part one of my presentation to you tonight is to go ahead and accept that grant from the Community Foundation, the amount of $90,000 for a 2-year full-time zookeeper to really get us back up to speed, cover some of the efficiency issues we're having at the zoo. This will help out greatly. And we understand, I'll look you as a council, straight-faced, understanding this very well may be a 2-year position. It's easy to get grants and sneak in a position and kind of hide them under the table in years 3, 4, 5, and beyond. We understand the position that the city's in, our department's in, and we're not asking for the long-term commitment. Do we hope it's sustainable? Yes. But what we're asking is the confirming the $90,000 so we can move forward with that second zookeeper for the balance of fiscal year 2020 and 2021. And then we'll see where it's at in year 2022. So that's part A, and I'll probably refer to Matt or Kristen if I can seek one motion, or shall we? Because I do want to talk about the professional services contract with the mayor as well. So
Two
two?
motions. Yeah. That's a different item on the agenda.
It is, okay. Okay.
Motion's already been made on the
Okay.
professional services.
So that would be what we're looking at. This is just to acknowledge and accept that grant with the additional funding coming from both the Lake Area Zoological Society and out of the Park and Rec budget.
No,
I mean,
we're actually, the first item is the
See,
first item is the
that's what
64,000.
happens
The
when I don't
motion-
have my agenda in front of me.
The motion's
So-
already, motion's already been made for the 64,000, so that's the first
yeah,
item.
so please take everything I said and bank that,
yeah.
because I don't want to repeat.
Hold those thoughts.
Hold those thoughts. Okay, we'll go back to the professional services agreement. Working for a while now, trying to get the engineering services, architectural services to at least give us an idea of what that footprint's going to look like. Dan and his staff have spent a lot of time with TSP architects to give us a floor plan. We're still, I won't call it back and forth, but we're still trying to find that final concept. We have a really good idea of what it looks like, but we do need probably a few more sit-downs with the smaller committee to finalize that, but we are so very close. But in order to move forward, we do need those professional services. So I'm asking the council to go ahead and authorize the mayor to enter into agreement with TSP Architects in the amount of $64,000. And this, not saying it will be the full contract, but this will cover the design and architectural services to at least get us renderings, get us bid documents, and that kind of thing. So that would be my recommendation. That does come in with a recommendation from both the Lake Area Zoological Society, moved on to the Park and Rec Board with a full recommendation to the council for approval.
All right, thank you, Terry. Councilman Billhauer?
Actually, Kristen had her finger up over there. I'll defer to her before I make any comment.
There you go. Thank you. The only thing that I want to add is with this is not budgeted currently for the 2020. So as this progresses through with the signing of this contract for the design, and then if there is any construction aspect, just so the council's aware that I will be bringing forward a budget supplement ordinance to offset that as well. Thank you.
Right, thanks. Councilman Billhauer?
Okay, first of all, goes without saying, a deep credit, deep thank you to, I understand the donor wish to remain anonymous, at least at this point. So, but again, thank you so much to this individual for coming forward, because yes, it is going to make this project a whole lot easier. Now, as I understand it, though, the wish.
It's contingent on something $1 million. Just so you know.
The wish is that we begin, if not complete, construction in 2020 is my understanding.
Yes.
So we do need to, if we get our final plans in place, move forward on this.
Right. No, thank you, Glenn, and to clarify, again, we can sit here and be as gracious as we can run it. I mean, a $1 million, it brings that truly into reality. And as we talk, I do think we want to make sure we have the final conceptual, and I do believe we're going to come back with that final conceptual draft based on a couple short little meetings we need to have to make sure, and then come to the council for that balance of roughly, Mayor, help me out, around $500,000 would be the commitment that we would ask the city. So we could get a shovel in the ground in 2020. And Dan kind of alluded to the donor, would like to see some things happen, and I think that's doable, and that's part of this smaller committee to iron out those small details, because this is new, and in 3 days to put it all together was difficult. So I would like to cross our T's and dot our I's and bring it back with the full-fledged ask of the council.
I mean, what the donor is wanting, basically, he's read it in the paper, it's costing an extra $250,000 if we do it in phases. The donor offered $1 million if we start the construction this year and see the whole project through. That's I guess what he's asking. The person's remaining anonymous, so we don't. I'm just talking to the donor, and that's how we're going to keep it. And I think it's just a great thing that this individual is doing for it. So what he's trying to do is just speed it up.
That's wonderful. Other comments or questions from the council? Councilman Billhauer?
I'd also like to, even before this generous offer or donation came through, there was an awful lot of work being done behind the scenes, and I want to commend the mayor, Park and Rec Board, Zoological Society Board staff. Really good communication and cooperation between those entities. I think there's been some issues in the past that there wasn't quite the level of coordination and communication that we needed between some of the various entities, that I feel much better about where the zoo operation is going from here, going forward, with better communication, cooperation with all the various entities that are involved in management and operation. So I want to thank those that work behind the scenes to bring this to this point, and that was even before the $1 million donation came forward.
Thanks, Glenn. Anyone else? Councilman Rademski?
The Zoological Accreditation, how long is that accreditation good for?
Well, it's actually through the Bramble Park Zoo, and accreditation is every 5 years. And now we have to go for the tabling and reaccreditation, so it'll be for 4 more years.
So is there any cost to the city on that to get accredited? Does that cost the city anything?
Well, it costs our annual fee to be a member of the AZA, which comes with all these benefits. And then there's costs when we do the accreditation of the people coming there and paying for their fees. So it's basically inspection fee.
Okay.
And then we have to attend the annual meeting then in Columbus, Ohio this year.
How much is that inspection fee?
Well, it's usually around $1,500 or something like that.
Okay.
It depends where they're coming from. They don't actually charge, they just charge for meals and lodging because it's done, for free. I've done accreditations in the past.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Councilman Lallam?
Terry, on the 64,000, what percentage do you feel that'll cover?
That's about 80% of the contracted price. Our complete proposal was about 84, 83,000. The balance of that would be construction management. So what I asked the council for is just really the upfront documents, the renderings, what would be payable in fiscal year 2020. Because as, especially with this donation, we can simply take the balance of that 20,000 and fund it out of our capital improvement plan. So this would just be kind of an advancement from Kristen to at least have the mayor sign into that agreement. So thank you, Kristen. But, and I do, in close, I don't want, I just felt with it being Monday with a Friday announcement, I wish I could have came with you with, please give us the balance, but I need to work in a smaller committee to get to that point. We are so blessed to get this donation, and we're excited to see where those funds can bring us to accomplish that animal care building and bring us into the future for the next 20, 30, 40 years. So I don't want to make it sound like I'm downplaying the donation, because I'm not. I'm ecstatic. But I think it's fair to the council to come with a true plan of how those dollars would be spent.
Right,
Well,
sure
the
takes
only-
the heat off.
Yeah, the only thing that I'm concerned about is the fact that the later you bid this thing out, it's probably going to go higher. Because a lot of the work for spring is being bid right now. So that's what we're going to look up to. It'd be great if we could bid it out in April. That would be ideal. It's just a suggestion after talking with TSB and other people.
Right. Get it going quickly. Anyone else? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. And now you can talk about the other one, but I'll read the title first.
Yeah, please do.
So, item number 5 is recommendation to the City Council from the Parks and Recreation Board to accept a $90,000 grant from the Watertown Community Foundation to fund a 2-year full-time zookeeper position, with the balance of funds coming from the Lake Area Zoological Society and Parks and Recreation funds.
Again, just a quick paraphrase that we were gifted the $90,000 over 2 years, $45,000 to cover salary. The balance for benefits were going to be funded by LEZS and the City of Watertown within our allocated funds. This is no new money. This is just us probably just degrading some of the temp salaries allotment because we would have a full-time person. So there's no impact on our budget, but we would like you to accept this grant so we can move forward with the advertising. And unfortunately, we are in February, and it takes a little bit of time to get somebody on, but this would be for 2020 and 2021. And then we'd find some sustainability if we could to fund it in years past, but with no commitment do I ask from the council on that.
And I would like to make that motion as well.
Thank you. We have a motion from Councilman Vilhauer and a second from Lallam. Do we have questions or comments? Kristen?
The only thing that I add again is with this, once it goes to the full council, it'll be on there for approval, but with that motion, then it would also give the one additional zookeeper, and then I'll also be bringing forth a budget supplement for that as well. So, thank you.
So this will be a total of 2 new zookeepers this year.
Yes, yes.
Should help with our accreditation, along with the animal care building and some other things.
Correct.
Yeah, we also plan on modernizing some of the zoo exhibits. Now, we do have grant funding for that. That was another thing.
Excellent.
So we're going to work on the triplex and the CAD areas.
Okay. Councilman Albertson?
For Kristen, do you have places on the salary schedule now that would be the market value positions for these new spots, so we don't get caught up in anything there?
This position would still be an AFSCME position, and AFSCME is currently still on the old matrix. Yep.
Councilman Lallam?
Do we see this as a potential downfall with only having a 2-year commitment on there as far as trying to find someone to hire?
You know what, I'm honestly glad you asked that, because what we've challenged Dan and his staff with is using those 2 years to find sustainability. So if that position, if it is pulled, that we've worked hard to get our exhibits modernized to be able to pull that position and still be as efficient as we are with it. So it's really using the 2 years to catch us up over the last 10 years of our deficiencies, but now find those efficiencies to have the staff where we're not burning everybody out trying to get where we are, get caught up, now look at the big picture of the zoo and find out where those efficiencies, where the exhibits Dan can modernize, where's the best place to use staff. So if that position can't be funded beyond, we're still in a better place than we are today.
Yeah, I could see that there's potential for someone that's looking, to get hired in this position December 31st, 2 years from now, they're out of a job.
It's the tough sale of marketing that position.
Yeah.
You hope there's someone out of college or someone building a resume that's qualified. Because it's not somebody off the streets, it's definitely a qualified position.
Right.
That's the downside, but with recruitment and Dan's connections within the AZA, hopefully we do get somebody, and hopefully we do find that sustainability. We can come back with a straight face in 2 years and have that funding. That is our goal. It's not our goal to end it, but I don't want to turn the funds away at this point, at least, because it will help us get to where we are at really a commitment from the city of really $0 in what we already allocated. So.
Right.
Thank
We'll be really launching into sustainability of our whole park system, and
Correct.
looking forward to just walking around the zoo and looking at where we need to do things and where we can make some changes so that we can be sustainable well into the future, using our accreditation report as a guide. So that will be good. Are there any other questions or comments? Councilman Vilhauer?
Just a couple thank yous again. I really want to thank the Zoo Society for stepping up for that first position. I know we got a couple Zoo Society members of the board here in the audience tonight, as well as the Community Foundation. Just an example of how when the need arises here in Watertown, organizations come forward, people come forward, and we always say we don't have the real deep pockets here.
Motion carries. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. All right, item number 6 is discussion on airport funding for a proposed tank farm expansion for commercial airport fueling operations. I have a motion by Helene and a second, was that Beth? Manti. Okay. They're not. I'll get to that. So Heath, you want to introduce this, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I'll actually note a correction here on the agenda that items 6 and 7, as you can see, are repeat items. It was intended that discussion with the council on funding for a professional services contract renewal with ArcStar be one of the other items. So we'll go ahead and talk about the tank farm expansion initially here, and then we can talk about the ArcStar contract renewal as well.
I got motions on those, and there's really no action. We're just having discussion, so. Yeah.
Correct. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this is just for discussion purposes to get the council's input on how to proceed. I'll call Todd Syrie, airport manager, up here as well to talk through this with me. But as you all know, there's a lot of action going on at the airport, and part of that activity is related to our fueling operations out there. And there's some news that came forth recently regarding the fixed base operator and their agreement and how we fuel the commercial airline that serves Watertown, as well as a multitude of other aviation fueling necessities that are out there at the airport. And I'll just hand this over to Todd, and he can talk in detail what this tank farm expansion project is about. I will note up front, though, that the cost for this expansion are roughly $100,000. This is not budgeted for 2020, and that's why we're discussing it with you here this evening, to throw out some ideas and mainly share with you some of the excitement behind this project and what it would do for the airport. So, Todd, feel free to expand on that.
Thank you. So, right now we have a 12,000 gallon tank. Usable gallons in that is 9,600 gallons. Excuse me. A tanker load is 8,000 gallons when they come to dump. So we have 1,600 gallons that we have to play with, or John has to play with here. I do have John Yost, owner of ATY Aviation here, to kind of help me out, guide me through the private side of this, which is a big deal. But we do have obligations to the commercial airliner we also have in here as well. So this all ties together fairly nicely. We've been expanding like crazy, as you all know. We have more general aviation at the airport than we've ever had. We're seeing more jets come into the airport, and with John's, what he can discuss later here with CAA fueling, we're anticipating even more large jets, large private jets coming through the airport. All stemming back to a fueling issue. We have a 12,000 gallon tank, 9,600 usable gallons. John has had days with 2,000 gallons used in a day, so the 1,600 gallons is a little light from where we want to be. With the expansion of Lake Erie Tech and their pilot program, professional pilot program, they will be using jet fuel later in their training. Also, John has flight instruction, and that could go up to the Jet A's as well, Jet A fuel as well. So. With that, I will turn it over to John just to kind of run through his CAA contract that he just got awarded.
Yeah, thank you. We just recently, actually officially, 1st of February here, were approved as a CAA fuel supplier, which is Commercial or Corporate Aircraft Association, and it's for private jets, basically, that are operating not for hire, but for their own businesses. And there's a lot of them out there. And it's not awarded to just anybody. You have to apply and get voted on, and we got voted in. And so we're excited about that. But with that, we don't know exactly what it's going to bring. All the research we'd done prior shows that it obviously brings in more traffic, but how much we don't know. But the nice thing about Watertown, it's got a nice airport, nice facilities, central part of the U.S. You know, we get a lot of traffic right now that's on its way to the somewhere out west or east, and they land here to get fuel. You know, so with that, this Corporate Aircraft Association is, I don't know exactly how many members. It's big, and it's getting bigger all the time. They pay a fee for their aircraft, and then they qualify for an agreement that we have, a 3-year contract that we have with the corporation to supply fuel to them at a fixed cost above our cost, you know, so it gives them a big discount, and with that you can get anything from an aircraft that might take 100 gallons to an aircraft that could take 2,000 gallons at a shot, so you just don't know what you're going to get. So with that being said, the problem we're running into is I waited a year to do this, hoping that we would get something figured out in the interim with the fuel farm, which we really haven't done anything else with. But not only that is just to get all our ducks in a row before we jumped into this. So we had de-icing capabilities for bigger aircraft. We got lav services now for the lavatories on the aircraft. We purchased these different items, so we wanted everything in place before we went this far to bring more traffic in. But our concern obviously is if we have to get our fuel down so low before we can get a tanker in, we have to predict when that day is going to be, because we have to order our fuel. We try to do it at least 3 to 4 days in advance.
And then, of course, you throw weather into that. Fuel comes out of Minneapolis. We've had where, due to storms, they want to get here earlier if they can, or a day later to wait till the storm goes through. So that can be a problem. And the other thing is the airline itself, if it's foggy or whatever and they can't get in here, then we don't move any fuel that day. So we've guessed that we're going to have that much fuel gone for, say, Friday. On Monday, we said, okay, by Friday we should be able to hold a load, have a couple of days of cancellations due to weather, and then we have to change that to, say, Monday. Well, that goofs up our supplier as far as he's planning on hauling that load over on Friday. You know, he's already got stuff to do on Monday. So it becomes we've been fortunate. We've never had any problems. We always try to, we get the fuel ordered as soon as we can. Never want to go into a day where we're, you know, honestly less than 2,000 gallons sitting there ready just in case somebody shows up. So that's where it'd be really nice to have more fuel available. Our priority obviously is the 50 passengers that might get on the airline. We don't want to ever not have the fuel for the airline, so that's our number one priority. But along with that, we also don't want to have customers land with their jet and we don't have fuel for them. So it's, like I say, so far we've never had a problem, but we've had some close calls where we've been down to just the fuel left in the truck before the semi showed up to fill the farm. So
one of the sources of revenue for this project would be what's called the fuel flow fee that the city collects and is banked away at the state. And currently we're sitting at about $35,000 in funds from this fuel flow fee that's held by the state. And this is an eligible project for those types of funds to be used on. So that leaves about a $65,000 remainder for us to fund out of that $100,000 project estimate. I don't know, Todd, if you want to expand a little bit on that fuel flow fee, what that amount is, and what kind of typical revenue, extra revenue generation this CAA contract might bring for the city?
Sure. So with the state aeronautics fund, out of 4 cents, it gets divvied out to a bunch of different branches, but 4 cents a gallon is what the fee is, and the city retains a pot of money out at the state of 1.8 cents per 4 cents a gallon, if that makes sense. So we retain 1.8 cents into a fund per gallon that we flow through the Waterton Airport. I do reports every month. John gives me reports of what he has coming in to the fuel farm, and then I send those reports off to the state every month. So that's how the money's gotten collected so far, up to the roughly $35,000. Another note here is when John talked to another CAA FBO, their traffic went up by about 50% with large jets. So that's another thing to keep in mind that we haven't mentioned. Did you want to mention the 30,000 for both?
Yeah, that we can. There's another source of revenue that we have, or not revenue, but another source of funding that we could apply towards either this project or the next one that we'll be talking about. Todd had programmed in the airport budget to spend $30,000 on a second paint machine for use at the airport. He and I have looked at that budget and have decided we can withhold that purchase and not carry out that purchase in 2020 and use that $30,000 towards either this project or the subsequent ArcStar agreement that we'll be talking about after this.
Councilman Roby?
A few questions. For the CAA certification, did you have to commit to having so many gallons on hand?
no, we didn't have to commit to that. Just
Okay.
commit to a 3-year contract with them and a fixed price.
Okay, I do believe what Todd said. Once you get it, people will start using it. That will draw traffic. I do agree with that. Is this above the ground, below the ground? If you expand, what will you do? And how does it affect where we're going to put the new terminal? So about positioning for this today and for tomorrow.
Sure, great questions. So I can take those. As far as the below ground, above ground, we do have a containment pit out there. So this is all above ground, single wall tanks, NFPA approved, FAA approved. So it will fit in our fuel farm existing, so we won't have to do anything with the containment. We'll just have to slide the gas and diesel 500-gallon tanks we have right now are sitting side by side. We'll actually put them behind each other, which will be a little piping. And then we're looking at about a 20,600-gallon tank. Why the odd number is because of the dimension. So that's the rough gallons that we could fit in the spot we have currently that we could utilize.
So the long-term location for the fuel farm is right where it is now? We've got room there to expand?
Correct.
For the future, and that wasn't in the plan to move that at any point in time?
Correct. Even with the new terminal going where it's going north, as I call it, the way the airport sits in there, north of that, up on the Y, we have plenty of room to expand the terminal and plenty of room to expand the fuel farm for my lifetime.
Okay. Councilman Albertson?
Todd, is it any issue to get fuel brought in? All of a sudden, we have $20,000 more, or 20,000 gallon request. Can you get that much from Minneapolis then, just on a call in, or how do you do that?
It takes, I mean, you might get something the next day if you're lucky, but it'd be tough. A couple days at least. Yeah. Yep.
If you have your request long enough in advance.
Right. If everything works right.
Right.
Yep.
Councilman Hoyer?
Does increasing the quantity give us like any form of a discount too, since we'd be going up to a higher quantity of fuel coming in one go?
Well, to some degree it does, just because there's times when fuel goes down and you can get more in, at that time. It fluctuates pretty slow, but it does.
Good question. It gives him the opportunity to play the market a little bit more, rather than just 1,600 gallons. We need it tomorrow.
Councilman Vilhauer?
Is this an additional 20,000, or are we replacing the 12,000 with the 20,000?
This is an additional 20,000, correct.
Okay.
I don't want to come back in 5 years and ask you for another
I'm just
20,000.
curious, just of the 12,000, only 9,600 is usable. What's
Floating suction, so it's per airline requirements that you can't suck off the bottom of the tank, so they have to leave a reserve in there.
Gotcha.
For
Okay,
sediment
thank you.
and water testing. Another thing to mention is John is actually going after, now that he's gotten all of his equipment set up, he's going after charters. And we're talking large charters, football charters, college, NCAA, stuff like that. We have seen them come through the terminal. If they're a small enough group, SDSU, I want to give thanks to SDSU. They've used us 4 times now. In the last couple of months, they played Denver, and both basketball men's and women's have flown out twice, so twice each. So give them a huge thanks. They're a huge supporter of the Watertown Airport, and we'd like to get their bigger charters, their football charters. We've had them in the past when the airline was willing to de-ice or have stairs or whatever we had available at the time. But currently, right now, we don't have the equipment we used to have with the airline. So that's where John picks up with the equipment that he's purchased to get these charters back. And we could get even Laughlin, Nevada charters back for casinos. So there is more potential for using fuel in the future.
Councilman Roby?
Again, as I said earlier, I agree that once you get the certification, you're going to have people just stopping by for fuel. Not just charters, just that they're going to be a different stop-off point because it's a better option, bigger airspace, what have you. I mean, you said you don't want to come back in 5 years. Is 20,600 big enough?
It is. We've ran the calculations. We've actually watched this, and John's right. We've been watching this for about a year now. And we just both wanted to make sure that we didn't, want to come back to the table a second time. So this is where we settled. John is happy with this amount going forward for quite a long time.
Councilman Lallam?
Todd, on that 35,000 from the sales of fuel, how long did that take to acquire? Is that 10 years, 20 years, 1 year?
Well, it's picked up rapidly since we've gotten more traffic flying. So that all depends on how much fuel we sell at the airport. So 10 years ago, we didn't sell a whole lot. Last year, we sold a bunch. So to answer your question, it will be rapidly increasing that budget the more we get traffic in.
Okay. My other question is, what's the shelf life in one of these containers for fuel? Is it like gas where, you have to sell with a certain amount of time, or?
As far as the fuel itself?
Yes.
Oh, we test it every day, but it's, boy, it'll last months, and we'll go through it. Right now, we're going through it about every 6 days.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's not an issue.
Has there ever been a failed test?
Nope.
What
No,
would you do with the fuel? The test?
It'd be a problem. You'd have to get it taken care of. You wouldn't fuel the airline.
No.
Yeah.
Might be a
But no, it's
disposal
been good.
problem,
It's
too.
clean and dry. It's been really good. The farm's been good. Yep.
That's good.
And it's filtered in, it's filtered out, and it's filtered out again into the plane. So, I mean, it runs through 3 filters. Everything is sumped, so it's daily sumps and, yep.
Water detection.
All right. Anyone else? Councilman Billhauer?
Looking at Reed or Heath or Todd, I mean, is this going before the airport board? I mean,
This has, and it has been fully recommended.
Okay.
So we don't actually have a request tonight, but at the next meeting, there'll be a formal request for a budget transfer. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item 7, which is a discussion on airport funding of the ArcStar contract for airline marketing for commercial air service. Is that accurate?
Yes, so
Winging it.
the discussion on airport funding for a professional services contract renewal with ArcStar. One of the other great things going on at the airport are a lot, in part due to ArcStar services. As you recall, we entered into a contract with ArcStar the middle of last year. I don't know if it was August, maybe, of 2019.
It was August, correct.
And the council approved a 6-month agreement with them for their services. That's now come to expire, and Todd's been working with the owner-manager of ArcStar Group, who he works with on a frequent basis for the services they provide, but has been discussing with them a renewal of an annual 2020 contract with them for 12 months. The amount of that contract would be for $3,500 per month, to the tune of $42,000 for the full year. As we mentioned earlier, we've found some places in the budget where we can skim back on other anticipated expenditures and put them towards this effort, which we feel is a higher precedent of need than the other. 30,000 of those dollars would come from the paint machine that we just talked about briefly that could go towards this $42,000 contract. But Todd, if you want to expand a little bit on the work that ArcStar has done for us and how you anticipate utilizing them in the coming months if the council were to approve an extension with them.
Yes, thank you, Heath. So there's numerous facets that they bring to the table. ArcStar, Gary Foss, I don't know if you guys remember the presentation he did. Phenomenal guy, knows a ton of people in the industry. One of those things is we're paying him for his contacts, of course, being a consultant. He can call United any day of the week, any time of the day, and get a hold of somebody if we have questions or concerns or problems, which is very handy to have. The other thing he's doing is watching the till. He's running weekly reports on other airports we compete with for our traffic, and making sure we're within $75 on our top 15 markets, and he's done a phenomenal job with that. Most of the months that he's been with us, we have hit that $75 or cheaper than our competitors on our top 15 markets. Another thing he's added has been the Propel program. So he has actually sent staff to Watertown and went around to businesses, any kind of business with 6 or more employees. They're talking to everybody in town they could talk to. And they're getting them signed up in the Propel program, and it's a status match program as well. So the company earns points if they sign up for it, or miles, however you want to call it now, and the employee earns points and miles. So it's an intriguing way that United's putting this on to compete with their competitors out of Sioux Falls or Minneapolis or Fargo. That has been huge for us. Just to give you a little background, there's a local company, I won't say the name, I'll just keep it confidential, but they have about a $2.5 million travel budget. ArcStar has worked a deal with them on behalf of them for the Watertown Airport and United to give them a discount up front if they allot so much money per year to use United out of Watertown. They gave us a portion, the company gave us a portion of that money for 1 year. If everything goes well this year, they'll give us another portion next year, and in the third year, they'll give us the full amount. At the full amount, it equivalents to about 7,500 passengers, 7,500 employments, sorry, one way.
Wow.
Just one company. That's monumental. If you can sign up 6 of those companies and we can have reliable service like we have with SkyWest United, it's a game changer. You know, that's 35,000, 40,000 employments. So that's where Gary Foss and ArcStar shine. And they're doing monthly reports. They actually do a weekly conference call with myself and Mike Tomlinson, Airport Board. And Mike Tomlinson came from Aflac, huge marketing guy, and he just absolutely loves their service. So it is full recommendation from Airport Board as well to keep on with ArcStar. We are going to look at ways in the future to maybe segregate some of the great things that ArcStar does and get them at a lesser cost rather than the whole package. But right now, we're not there with staff right now to pull that inside. But in the future years, we will look at doing that and maybe lessen the burden on this cost overall.
All right. Councilman Roby?
When this came through, I was confident that it would at least pay for itself. Have you guys done kind of a return on investment analysis on this at all?
We have, and Mike Tomlinson can speak better to that, but we do have KPIs that he's following very, very closely, Mike Tomlinson, I'm sorry, with Gary Foss weekly. So yes, there is a return on investment for this. We are only 6 months into the data, so give us 6 months, we'll get back to you.
What's a KPI?
Key performance indicators. Wow, that probably shouldn't have brought that up. I almost didn't know.
Councilman Vilhauer?
As I recall, the 3,500 per month, that's the same rate that we're currently paying? So that would be the same for the next year then?
That is correct. And the contract that'll come forward, if you guys are okay with this, would be a 30-day contract. So it'll be a month-to-month contract, but a year contract. So we can get out of it, or he can get out of it within 30 days if we had to from loss of money or whatever we had. So it is a month-by-month contract, but it'd be a year obligation.
So if it were pleasing to the council, that's exactly what our plan would be, is Todd and I would bring a draft contract forward, but not until I have discussions with Kristen and the mayor on exactly how we would propose funding this. We've thrown out a couple ideas this evening, but we got a couple gaps to fill yet on the complete funding. Generally speaking, if we use that 30 grand in our budget towards this, we would be looking at about $15,000, $12,000 left to fund the full 42. And then on the tank farm, the fuel farm expansion, if we were to utilize the 35,000 sitting in the state coffers, we would have roughly 65 grand on that one. So between the two, about $80,000 total that we need to make up. Whether that's a straight up supplement or whether there's other areas we could find that from is something I need to work out with Kristen and the mayor and bring a solid recommendation forth to council.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you, Heath and Todd. Oh, Councilman Holeen.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to do my job as the liaison to the airport board and want to say that they've been discussing this for quite some time. They have a lot of wants and needs out at the airport, and as a complete unit, they have all agreed that this was priority number one to keep the momentum going that we have at the airport. And they have a lot of other things, structural and otherwise, but they came to the conclusion this was the most important thing that we could do for the airport to keep that momentum going. So I want to thank them for the job that they've done and not overloading us with a lot of asks. They come to us with specific ones that are vital, and I think that they should be commended for that.
Thank you. That's really good to know. Appreciate that. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next item is F, old business. Is there any old business? Any new business? Councilman Vilhauer.
I will tee this one up because it comes from me. I ran this by the mayor as well as Matt. All of us that sit up here, 10 council members and the mayor, when we run for election, to win a seat, we have to have a majority vote. we are the only, as I can think of it, the only group that requires a majority vote. Commissioners, statewide races, senators, representatives, those all just require a plurality. Whoever gets the most votes wins. I would like to propose that we make a similar change because for several reasons. One, I can think of 3 or 4 of us up here that were possibly subjected to that. I'm looking at you, Josh. You actually went through a runoff. Reed, you were in that position. Bruce, you went through a runoff. I was in that position. Mayor, you were in that position this last election. It's tough on us as candidates to do it, first of all, because it extends the whole process another 3 weeks, I think, is what we normally extend the process. Secondly, it's expensive to have a runoff election. I think, Kristen, what, $10,000, $12,000 I heard at one time that it costs to conduct a runoff. And thirdly, the turnout is pathetically low for runoffs. And I'd like to, as I understand it, I'm looking at you now, Matt, as I understand it, we do have the right as a municipality to change because it's in our ordinance, or we can make that change if we want to go down that road. So I guess at this point, I would like to see us consider that, but I guess I'll turn it over to you, Matt, to walk us through it a little bit more fully.
Thanks, Councilman Vilhauer. Yes, so the state statute essentially says that plurality is the rule unless a city decides to do something different. And so recently the statute used to actually require cities of 25,000 or more to elect their representatives by a majority, so that would include a runoff requirement. That was changed, but for some reason, I don't know if it was Watertown just wanting to be like the big boys or something, but we adopted the statute, we adopted that majority requirement that was imposed on the bigger cities in 2005, I believe it was, 2005, yes. So, right now, we have an ordinance that says that election must be by majority, which then requires a secondary election if a candidate does not get a majority. But it's within our ability to simply repeal that ordinance if we would like, and basically we would just default to state law, or we could still leave something on the books that reflects state law, so there's something in our ordinance book. Rapid City recently did this. They just repealed the ordinance and now they just rely on state law. As you'll see in the memo here, I just pulled from 5 different cities. Sioux Falls is the only city in the state now that does what we do, that I can find at least, that requires that majority with a runoff.
All right, Councilman Vilhauer.
Matt, do you know that those that have just plurality, is it purely a simple plurality, or is there some minimum threshold that would still be required? For example, let's say we have 10 candidates. Somebody could get elected with 10% plus 1 vote, if my math is correct. I mean, do you know if any of these communities have some minimum threshold that a candidate would need to receive based upon how many candidates are running?
I wasn't able to find any communities that do that. I know I didn't get you this very far in advance, so I apologize for that. But in the bottom there, I have a couple of notes, and one of them is that I don't believe state law currently allows that. I believe it's one or the other. I think it's a little bit of a gray area, but I don't believe that, in my opinion, that state law would allow us to set some sort of a plurality, but a candidate must get 30%. I think it's either plurality, most votes wins, or majority. If somebody doesn't get a majority, then there must be a runoff. That's my legal opinion of the current state of the state law. So take that for whatever that's worth.
We'll take it. Any other questions about this? Anybody object to a change? Councilman Holeen?
I don't object to it. I agree with it. When you look at a pure cost of a runoff election and how few people turn out, it doesn't make a lot of economic sense. I would venture to say that it would not overturn the results of most elections of a plurality, but I would agree with this change.
Right. Thank you. I don't disagree too. Councilman Lallam?
My only concern would be, to Glenn's point, is if we had, say, 5 candidates running for something, and someone gets 20.1%, the rest of them get 19 something, you know, then it's well, who truly won it? So, I mean, that would be the perfect storm of issues that could come out of it, but I don't know that there's a win or lose with it.
Yeah, Councilman Villar?
Matt, if we were to go down this road, this would come before us as an ordinance change, 2 readings, public hearing, et cetera? Is that the route that we would go?
Yes, it would just be an ordinance change, and as I mentioned, we basically would have 2 choices there. One, we could just repeal our ordinance, and there, if we don't have an ordinance, we just rely on state law that requires, that mandates the plurality. Or we could, I could bring forth some language that basically mirrors state law, so we have something in our ordinance book, but it would essentially be identical to what the state statute says.
I guess I'd like to suggest, oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
No, I was just going to toss out, I think the plurality makes a lot of sense, and then by taking out the runoff expense, it actually makes it a little more of an equal process for any walk of life in the community to actually participate. So I think that could add a lot of value to the process.
Right.
Just a little history. When I made my first run 7 years ago, I went back and studied the history of the previous elections, and there were very few candidates running. There was one election just a couple prior to my first term beginning where there was only one race out of all 5 wards. So Adam, it's a valid point you bring up. If you go back and look at the history, that's really never happened just because there's quite frankly been a lack of candidates, unfortunately.
I guess I'd like to suggest that Matt bring forth some suggested changes. I know we got some time yet before the next election, but I guess as long as we're talking about it, I'd like to suggest that Matt bring forth some suggested changes and let us go through the process.
Right, we have time. I don't know why we'd want to have extra words if the state covers it, why we need to duplicate that. I'd say just eliminate it and vote on that, but if someone wants to duplicate it just for ease of finding it, anybody inclined that way? Looks, I see lots of shaking heads, so.
Well, it actually brings up kind of an interesting discussion, because there's several instances in our ordinance that we do mirror what's already required in some other document, whether that's charter or state law or federal law, frankly. And so this isn't going to happen tomorrow. There's 540 pages of ordinance, but over the long term, it might make sense to try to eliminate some of that duplicative language in our ordinance that's essentially already required by another law. And so if this council seems to be on board with that, then essentially what I'll bring forward then is just an ordinance that would repeal our current ordinance.
That would be good. And I think it's all right to refer to the state law in our ordinance. That wouldn't be duplicative, but it would tell people where to look.
Right.
And so that'd be okay. Councilman Hoyer?
I guess that's the big thing I would toss out if we're going to start trying to slim down some of our repeat stuff, that we do need a resource that still points them in the right direction to find things, because I would imagine that's where some of that duplicity comes from. It's just trying to give clarity to people, and so as long as we make a resource that maybe can help them out a little bit. It's not always easy to even navigate our website, so I know at the state level that site is not always the most intuitive either, nor is the federal site. So if we can make something that kind of points them in the right way, then I think that would be a great path ahead.
All right, thanks. Anything else on that? Is there any other new business? Not seeing any. What time is it here? No, the next item on the agenda is executive session pursuant to SDCL 1-25-2, and we do have several items that we could discuss in executive session regarding contract negotiations and personnel matters that we would like to discuss with our attorney. So I'm going to ask for a motion to go into executive session. I have a motion by White and a second by Lallam. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries.